You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast holiday leftover special. I'm Dave Roberts from Matt Lowe and Jessica Szilagyi. This episode is a combination of leftover stories that didn't quite fit in previous episodes, funny stuff, and some answers to your questions. We hope you enjoy. Well, in our special session, we got a sweet little piece of legislation called constitutional carry by those in the gun community. This would remove the requirement to purchase a concealed weapons carry permit from the government in order to exercise your constitutional right, hence the term constitutional carry. Now, the permits cost about $85, which, you know, it doesn't sound like an insurmountable amount of money, but it is tantamount to a poll tax. Jessica, as sort of an expert on the Gold Dome, is this a throwaway piece of legislation that we're just going to introduce every session until it just never passes?
So Brian Kemp has said that he supports it, so I think that's a step in the right direction. The problem is that David Ralston hates Matt Gertler. Their districts butt up to each other, and David Ralston actively campaigned against Matt's Republican opponent in the primary, which was the first time that leadership, including Nathan Deal, ever went against a sitting incumbent.
And Gertler probably stomped him.
Say what?
Gertler stomped that dude in the primary.
Oh, he really did.
Like, it was a curb stomping. It was great.
Yeah, the guy before... The district is so conservative and loves someone who votes no. Before Matt, it was Stephen Allison, who was equally as principled and had a great voting record. And so the district is well represented, and they have what they want. So, but my point, though, is that David Ralston hates Matt Gertler even more after losing, that battle there. And so I think that we'll see what happened a lot with Charlie Gregory when he was a state representative, in that someone else will probably drop a bill and Ralston will give that one a hearing instead. That happens a lot with the conservative legislators. They don't get the credit. But the nice thing about principled legislators is they don't care who gets the credit. They just want the policy. So
right.
At least we're having the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just to be clear, for those of us who carry in other states, the bill would not eliminate the fee, would not eliminate the ability to pay $85 and get your concealed carry permit for the states that offer reciprocity. So you can still, it would be worth it to me because I travel enough and travel armed enough to be able to go to neighboring states and have my concealed weapons permit, but would not be required to do that. And I'll tell you, this is the last Jim Crow law we have on the books. The whole idea was to keep freed slaves from arming themselves. So states in the South would require a license to carry a firearm.
Were you around then?
I was. It was John Barrow's daddy and I who stopped a lynching with a .32 revolver and a bolt-action rifle.
I mean, you offered a history lesson. I didn't have anything to say, so I'm sorry I attacked you. I apologize.
My friends are the people that say the worst things to me.
It's true. We've had multiple conversations that if Connie ever killed Dave, that all of Dave's friends would be a character witness for her.
And it
would go something along the lines of Dave probably deserved it.
Nice.
My mother would be on TV going, Took her that long?
Right.
Yeah, she had me for 18 years, and that's just because she was obligated by law. I mean, yeah, and I know a few people around here, and like, not a single one of them like, who? Oh, she did it? Yeah, I can see that. But no, anyway, we got rid of the poll taxes. We got rid of license requirements. We live in a time where we want voting to be as easy as American Idol, but we still want you to have to go down to the courthouse and beg a judge for the permission in order to exercise your Second Amendment right. And it goes back to that little phrase at the end, shall not be infringed.
Well, and there's a lot of misconception about what this means. Like, the background check isn't affected. People on social media have been flipping out. Oh, well, how will this is about carrying, not purchasing.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you have a concealed weapons permit, gun stores may bypass the background check on it. So if you don't have it, you will still have to go through the background check. And if you have a common name like I do, you'll still have 3 days to wait before the ATF comes back with anything. That doesn't change anything at the point of sale. The only thing it changes is if you happen to be carrying a gun in your pocket down Main Street, you don't have to justify to the state that you have been granted permission in order to carry this firearm.
Though right now it's not. It's like that anyway. The way that the last, I don't remember what the Guns Everywhere bill went. Like, they can't ask you for your permit.
Well, sort of. They can't, from my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, is they can't use the presence of a firearm in order to initiate a contact with somebody. So you can't see a pistol, bulging on my hip and walk up and go, hey, I want to see your permit. However, if there is another reason to interact with me, then they say, by the way, can I see your permit?
Right. That's my understanding.
Right. So those reasons are not... Now, look, let me give a disclaimer. I live in Paulding County. We've got the best law enforcement anywhere. We really do. I mean, from the sheriff down. If someone were not as principled as ours, had a directive, that's what he wanted, someone could, certainly, an officer could initiate based on any number of things. I have a bandana in my back pocket. Well, that's an affiliation with the gang. Let me go and talk to this guy. Whatever it is. And then at that point go, I see you have a firearm, I see your permit. This would remove that completely.
Would you still get a carry permit?
Yes.
I would too, because I travel outside of Georgia enough that by states that are on reciprocal agreements with us.
I also don't want to go to a gun store twice because there are 10,000 David Roberts. The more famous Dave Roberts, just slightly thanks to the show, is the manager of the Dodgers and played baseball. So when my application goes in on the form, I guarantee you it would come back with hold. It means I got to go back in 3 days because there's nothing in my background that's going to stop me, but I'm still have to go back.
See, I don't have to deal with that at all. And even if I did, like, I would just be like, fine, and whip out the FFL and be like, I'd like to do a dealer-to-dealer transfer.
Okay, Matt. Because you have a separate class of citizen. Matt has a federal firearms license, so he's a dealer. That's a separate thing. So it's not no Joe off the street can't do that, and so
right. Unintended consequences. It's funny, man. I'm gonna use this as a segue. The decriminalization versus legalization. I actually did an interview this week with for a girl, a college student
In high school.
Yeah, she's dual enrollment for her public speaking class, and someone had sent my name to her as a lay expert because of, I don't know why, but Dave's shaking his head. Just because of my involvement with politics here in the county and whatnot. Anyway, the conversation was about decriminalization versus legalization of prostitution, and why decriminalization would be better than legalization.
Before we get to your point, you were talking to a high school girl about the advantages of prostitution.
Correct.
As a lay expert.
Right.
Father of the year. Good government, and Pauline's going to be all over this.
You know, and this is why I was shaking my head, is Matt and I have talked about this, that he was going to have this, do this interview, and the fact that he introduced himself as a lay expert before getting into the prostitution thing.
I didn't introduce myself. Well, I did, I guess, in this. That was her title, a lay expert.
I mean, it is the proper legal term, but are you just now getting it?
Damn, that one marinated for a while.
It did. You know, something.
I mean, before I was more stuck on the fact that you were giving prostitution advice basically to a minor, but then it was a lot to take in in a very short amount of time.
She's 17. She's not a minor in the state of Georgia.
She's a minor. She's just past the age of consent.
You just keep
No.
Keep digging the hole.
17 in the state of Georgia is an adult.
You just keep digging, Matt. She's only 17. So, what was your conclusion of decriminalization versus legalization?
I feel that decriminalization is better than legalization. For the simple fact that all it does is removes the criminal consequences of engaging in prostitution. And in my thoughts on it, on the surface, it would seem that either would accomplish the same thing, but with legalization comes regulation. And with regulation comes consequences if those regulatory boxes aren't checked. So I would it would just create a whole new set of laws that now hookers have to adhere to. So I think the from the freedom aspect of it, you decriminalize it and you be done with it.
Now, what does decriminalization look like in your mind? You just remove all prostitution laws from the books?
They just stop. Like, they don't necessarily remove the fact that it's illegal from the books. They just remove all the consequences. So there's no reason for law enforcement to mess with them, right?
Well, and we keep doing these subjects where, it's hard to come down on the side of hookers.
I bet Jessica can. I mean, she's been on the side of strippers and porn. I bet hookers is just the next step, right?
It's a slippery slope.
Right.
Why does it have to be slippery?
Because I'm not going there.
No, Jessica, now, what Matt's talking about, as far as removing consequences and still keeping it illegal, does that continue to empower the government to do things like seize websites that allow these young ladies of the evening to advertise?
What?
Okay. Backpage. And the government seized websites, specifically Backpage, for prostitution. So if it is still technically illegal, however, you remove the consequences for the girls and for the Johns, whatever Matt's plan is, doesn't that still empower the government to do things like seize the websites or seize whatever communication devices they use in order to exercise their profession?
Why? Like, what's their probable cause at that point?
If it's still illegal.
It's still illegal.
I mean, if
he's saying, like, if you're talking about from a decriminalization standpoint, like, if it should be nothing. Like, it should be like when you have sex without money, where the government's not getting involved, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, decriminalization is not sufficient, and I understand why you're saying legalization is not sufficient, because then comes taxes and regulation and all of that, which again is not the role of the government. Decriminalization is problematic no matter what you're talking about, be it sex or drugs or anything, because it's still on the books, which gives them the ability to monitor it or, use it as a stepping stone to get you to incriminate yourself about something else. Or, I mean, it just opens so many doors. There shouldn't be anything on the books about it.
There's so many like that now involving sex. I mean, it's still technically illegal in this state for a man and a woman to have sex in any position other than missionary.
Well, here's the other problem with decriminalization, which is conspiracy. So if a couple people get together and plan on and decide they're going to put together a prostitution ring or an establishment of ill repute, the conversation around that is, even though the actual act may have no penalty to it, you have a conspiracy charge. It's where there's a will, where there's a prosecutorial will, there's a way. Now, do we get a jury nullification at that point? Who knows? But legalizing it, even if it is regulated, and now Brad Raffensperger has to personally sign off on all the licenses for whores.
That would be amazing.
It really would. But, if you have sanitary standards for the people that cut your hair, I assume the same would go for, the girls, the working girls. So we can both say that regulating is wrong and making personal interactions illegal wrong. It's not the role of government to tell you who and why you can have sex. It's not the role of government to tell you who you can marry. It's just not the role of government. As George Carlin put, and I'll clean it up, selling, legal. Screwing, legal. Selling, screwing, illegal.
Right.
And the entire dance of dating is spending money in order, hoping to get sex.
Right.
So really what that does is that combines prostitution with gambling, because you're not sure of the outcome at that point.
Now, see, like, the United States has experience with both versions of that. Obviously it's in Nevada, it's legal. Well, in certain parts of Nevada. Sorry, Nevada, for anyone from there. It's legalized there. And in 2003 or 2004, Rhode Island decriminalized it. And then, of course, I think in 2009 they made it illegal again. But so there's a precedent in dealing with it from both aspects.
Sure, and it's not that it's legal in Nevada. It's that it's not illegal. To your point, I mean, in the city of Las Vegas, it is illegal. Our dear departed Congressman-elect Dennis Hoff ran his Moonlight Bunny Ranch. It was several miles outside of Las Vegas. And
yeah, he was in Carson City, wasn't he?
I don't know. I've never been. But I know that one of the Kardashians' husbands about died there taking herbal Viagra and cocaine or something.
Right.
Lamar Odom, whatever it was. Anyway, so yeah, it's you still have zoning issues, the same zoning issues we have with strip clubs. That this city may decide they're just not going to allow it. In that case, Las Vegas does not allow it. And the biggest people that would vote against legalizing it in Las Vegas would be the strip club owners.
Probably so.
But legalizing it just means we're going to remove the term prostitution from the books. We're not going to say that it's legal because that's not how laws work. It's just not illegal. And it'd be amazing for people to have interpersonal relationships and business relationships free of government interference.
It's a pie in the sky, big dream.
Right.
It is. And look, that's where, it gets difficult to have the conversation. If cocaine was illegal, would I go buy an 8-ball tonight? No. If prostitution were legal, would I find myself over at at a brothel? No. But it doesn't mean that I believe it's the role of government. In an ideal world, you wouldn't have these things. Everybody would get along and everything would be clean. But we keep hearing about sex trafficking. Well, how does sex trafficking happen? The overwhelming majority are not Liam Neeson style taken. Just some girl walking down the street and snatched off the street. Or else every milk jug would have a picture of some girl who was taken. Overwhelmingly, it's a runaway drug addict. And you're 17 years old, 18 years old, whatever it is. You have no skills, you have no education, you're away from home, and you need to put a roof over your head. How do you do it? And that's how you end up, these misfortunate people end up in being trafficked that way. It's not some Russian mafia and I'm sure that happens around the world, but it's not overwhelmingly. It's illegal aliens and runaways that get brought into the life because that is the one item they have to barter, which is themselves.
Right.
But no one will talk about that aspect of it. They want to pass laws like the outgoing District 19 representatives outlawing porn to deal with sex trafficking, or run that movie Porn the New Drug over around here. They've been showing it at churches or whatever. And everybody has this idea of girls being auctioned off in a bunch of one-way glass with Persian princes behind them. And that overwhelmingly is just not the reality. The reality is that lonely teens, questionable parenting often lead to runaways and ending up on the street.
Right.
And for that, I'll be universally hated by every woman who believes all the stories I see on Facebook of, oh my God, I was almost totally abducted. No, you weren't. The dude was walking behind you.
Right. I hate those stories. Yeah, I was walking through Walmart and this guy was following me. No, he wasn't. He was shopping.
I even think about that. If the car in front of me and I make the same 4 turns in a row, I'll think about missing one of the turns just to make sure that they know I'm not following them. Because I'm just creepy enough. So, we've got listener questions. Matt, hit us with number 1.
Number 1 is Dave gonna take me out on his boat in the spring?
That's really not a very good question. The question is, does Matt make it back to the dock?
Depends. Where are we going?
I hit the near shore reefs off of Lower Alabama. But yeah, absolutely. Matt's always welcome on my boat or in the house or anywhere else. The only thing that I worry about is if we get stopped, is he going to yell, "Am I being detained?" if DNR stops us to check my coolers?
You got a warrant for that?
Now, Jessica, you were invited to go offshore with me, and you said that you don't do offshore fishing, and you would tell us later, and it is later now, so tell us.
I would rather die than go offshore fishing. And last time I went offshore fishing, I almost did. I almost died. So I was in the Dominican Republic, and the group I was with said that they wanted to go offshore fishing or deep sea fishing. And I was like, I don't really want to. The last time I went, I got really, really sick. Doesn't sound fun to me. No. But I got talked into it because they said, oh, it's the Dominican and, it's calm and the waters are beautiful and it's going to be so much fun. Okay. No, it wasn't so much fun. The waters were not calm. I spent 3 hours hanging over the side of a boat wishing I'd fall in. And I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. I finally passed out on the boat, and then they put me in a canoe to take me back from the boat to the shore. Like, it was just an absolute nightmare. I think like 10 out of the 11 people who were on the boat were sick, which was a great thing because I didn't want to go and I felt like everyone should suffer. So I don't want to go, but I hope you guys have a great time.
Jessica, do you know how I know that you and I are friends?
Why?
Your pain delights me so much. I am laughing so hard at you hanging over and them having to bring a canoe to come and get you to bring you in.
So I literally, like, the first time I got sick, I was like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna lose it and I'll feel better. Wrong. It was just, it was just terrible. And then it turned into just heaving. And every time I'd hang over the side of the boat, like someone was holding on to my life vest and I wanted to be like, just let it go. Just let me get, let me get in the water. Because like dragging me behind the boat has got to be better than hanging over the side of this plastic piece of shit. I mean, every time I hung over the side, water was just splashing me in the face, and like it was just horrible. It was.
Now there is a no mercy rule on my boat. Like if we go out with kids, like if you're at 2-3 miles, you're not feeling good, we'll come back in. But because where I go is 100 miles off and things like that, there's a no mercy rule. If you nut up and say, I'm going to go with you, it's just going to suck if you get sick.
Yeah. They did not take us as far as they said they were going to take us. And I'm thankful for that. But, I mean, it felt like we were halfway to Europe. It was horrible.
Halfway to Europe.
It was so far. It was terrible. I was crying. And like I said, I finally just passed out. And the, whatever you call the, like, captains or whatever, they just put me in the canoe and basically drug me back to shore.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your pain is awesome. That's...
So no fishing for Jessica. Got it.
and I've been fishing the Dominican, and it was great. We tied into a bunch of dolphin, which is what people call mahi and all that stuff. I love fishing the Dominican.
Yeah, well, All I got out of it was a cracker addiction.
Cracker addiction.
I ate crackers for 24 hours.
You're addicted to Uncle Cracker. Okay.
Gosh.
So what's next?
Matthew?
Well, one of them was aimed at me. Would I accept a hunting invitation from Dick Cheney? Yes. I mean, I think that hunting in general probably carries with it some risk. And I don't know. Might be kind of fun. Maybe he's like senile enough now that he'd be spilling some state secrets or something, like, I don't know, walking out in a sagebrush field or something like that, and he starts telling me about Area 51 or some nonsense with Iraq that I didn't know about.
Okay, first of all, even the hunting accident was not like being hit with a 30-06.
Oh, yeah, no. No, he got peppered by...
Some dude went across his field of fire and got peppered with bird shot. Now I'm with you. I'd go hunting with Dick Cheney too, because Dick Cheney's rich.
Right?
And the hunting trip would be awesome.
Yup.
Jessica, would you go hunting with Dick Cheney?
Yes. It's a great time for an accident.
Have you ever been hunting?
Yes.
We did talk about that a little bit, didn't we? Man.
It would be just fine, and it'd be like hunting with Ted Nugent. You're going to kill something. Yeah, I'm cool with it. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd hunt with Uncle Ted.
Really?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you hunt with Uncle Ted?
Like, I have he's a high fence hunter, and it's just not my thing.
Well, I think he has some physical limitations on that too.
What do you mean?
Well, he's not
a spring chicken, right?
Well, he's not a spring chicken. I think he's got some problems with his knees and hips and all that stuff. I'm not excusing all of that.
No, I mean, look, if you want to hunt high fence, that's fine. Like, I don't begrudge anybody who hunts, or even hunts whatever way they choose to hunt. It's just not something I want to do. Well, does that make sense?
No, it does. Here's the thing. Being a fisherman, especially being a saltwater fisherman, is I would not go and fish I wouldn't go and fish SeaWorld. So that to me is a strange thing. Now, as far as the high fence thing goes, I have no idea how that goes, and I know Ted has said when it's like, "Oh, this is the people's deer," really, because I feed them, I grow them, I cull them, and I do everything else. I think it's less hunting and more harvesting. Yeah, well, and that is the thing that says on your thing is you're harvesting so many deer and all that stuff. But
the thing within the hunting community now is like they're trying to put, and I get it because there is a number somewhere. They're trying to put a number on how many acres can be fenced in before you consider it fair chase, right? Because you take like the average, the range of a white-tailed deer is about 1 square mile. That's 640 acres. So if you fenced in a square mile and a half, you have now exceeded its I don't know. I don't know what that number is for me, but it's not that. I mean, technically, we've got the oceans to the east and west, and Trump's border fence is going into the south. And from what I understand, the stuff to the north is a little more difficult to get past. So I guess technically there is, the lower 48 is fenced, so to speak.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a certain tourist thing about going to a fenced ranch and going and getting whatever you need to get.
All right. Jessica.
Yes.
Throw a question at us.
Throw a question at you. Is Georgia really the number one state to do business?
I have no idea. If you're a small guy, no.
Right.
If you are a giant corporation that wants to come in and they want to hand you a bunch of gifts and stuff, I'm sure we are. But as far as small business goes, no, we're not the greatest. If we were, we wouldn't have a income tax, and that's just the way it is. We have income tax, we have high gas taxes. No, we are not the number one state to do small business for sure. But if you want to go and open a movie studio, apparently they will do everything they can to make you happy.
But not at Amazon HQ2.
Oh, I'm so happy that we lost that one.
But they'd have their own road.
So, Matt, what is the actual list of criteria for being allowed to vote? And then, Dave, do we agree?
My actual list of criteria for being allowed to vote and my argument for each item.
Yes. Yes.
So, it was like you cannot be on traditional welfare. Okay, so if you're a food stamp recipient, a Section 8 recipient, or I don't know what the other one's called, where they like legitimately just stroke you a check because you need some pocket money, right? None of that. Those three, if you're on those three, you're out.
What about Social Security?
No.
What about if it's not your Social Security that you're receiving?
What do you mean?
Like dependents and stuff, and wives of people that die and everything.
That's still that was that dude's money. Like if I died right now, my kids would be eligible for Social Security because that's mine. I've paid into it, and they're my dependents. Like I'm down with that.
Well, it's actually not yours. You're actually getting someone else's money because yours has been spent. But I get what you're saying.
Right.
What about corporate welfare? What if someone's getting incentives?
Do corporations vote?
But individuals get those benefits for their businesses, like sole proprietors and stuff.
I'm back to just like the personal stuff. If there's corporate stuff, that's a problem that needs to be sorted out with the legislature.
So, at what point does someone get the right to vote?
When they're not on when they're not on gifts from the state that can be promised to them.
So
I also think.
How do you define a gift?
Well, I already did food stamps, Section 8, like.
But that's subjective.
That's not subjective at all. That's like
it is a subjective. If that's how you're defining a gift, that's absolutely subjective because technically an exemption or a loophole or a tax break or something is a gift from your government.
Okay. So I defined the three items and then I called them gifts. And and now you're wanting to place additional things in there under the definition of gift. So
No.
I'll go back.
That's not what I'm doing at all.
I'll go back to welfare. Okay, those 3 items are what I would consider welfare, and if you are a recipient of any of those 3 items, you are ineligible to vote, because at that point you can vote for somebody who will promise to give you more of it.
No, what I want to know is how, at some level, do you go to vote and someone says, no, you're not qualified because of this? Where is that point?
What do you mean?
Well, if you go to the polls and you walk up and you say, well, yeah, I've been registered to vote, whatever it is, and I can't vote, what is the litmus test to tell me I can't vote?
Oh, are you a welfare recipient? Like, I don't think that would be a very difficult list to cross-reference. You know, and your voter registration gets kicked while you're on it. What do you mean? Well, that may be true, but if you're accepting welfare, like you've gone in, you've filled out applications, you've sat for interviews, they know who you are. I giggle because, well, yeah, to some degree.
I mean, really, do they?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, look, the idea that someone hops across the border, right, and runs in here and runs to the closest welfare office and walks out that day with everything under the sun is just stupid. It doesn't happen. There's somebody somewhere, and I don't think they're doing their jobs all that well, but they have to do them to keep them. And I get that their job is to sign folks up, but they still have boxes they have to check. And if those boxes don't get checked, then they're not getting it. Welfare, and maybe, I was on a homeowner. I might be willing to concede that a little bit, because I can see some advantages at different points. I can see an advantage to not being a homeowner. So I guess I'll just scale it back to welfare. If you're on welfare, you don't get to vote till you get off welfare. Then you can vote.
Here's the problem. The federal government has labeled receiving Social Security as a benefit, a federal benefit, even though that those folks have paid into it for, 60 years.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's like, it's kind of like what, and that's why I have to be very specific about what I'm calling welfare in the context of this conversation, because we call all kinds of things welfare, and they really are. We talk about stuff with the Farm Bill where we're subsidizing farmers. Those subsidies, that's a form of welfare. I think that to go that far, to really get in the weeds on that and start taking the libertarian view of what is considered welfare, you're going to knock everybody out of the voting thing. And I'm, part of me would be okay with that too, because I'd like to see what happens if nobody showed up on election day. But I think that would be interesting.
Sure it would. All right, what's next?
What are your thoughts on homelessness on Sesame Street?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I don't even know who Lily is.
I don't care.
Right, it's Sesame Street. It's a show.
My opinion is that kids are too young to be dealing with real life issues, and they shouldn't have to know about those things on Sesame Street level.
Oh, is that what happened? Like they made a homeless person on there? I thought that question was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but...
No, I'm pretty sure they actually added a homeless Muppet, and I just don't think it's appropriate for, maybe for like teen programming, but I don't think that toddlers and 5-year-olds need to know the harsh realities of the world. Right.
Man, I was watching this Jordan Peterson clip, and it got me thinking about homeless people, and that's why this is even coming up. And they were talking about how the military, had gone through and basically figured out that there was an IQ level that they didn't recruit below because there was nothing that they could offer, right? And that IQ score was 83. And they said that 1 in 10 people have an IQ of 83 or below. And we were talking about that at work, and one of the guys at work, he was like, 1 in 10 is worthless to society. And I don't know, man. Do you agree with that? Like, I see it from the military point.
I mean, that's definitely that's probably like a really in-depth conversation we could have. I feel like we wouldn't really be doing it justice to answer it quickly, but to the points that you brought up, I feel like, I mean, could somebody who has a low IQ not do like janitorial or cafeteria work or something? Like, I guess I don't really understand that.
And that's the way that I took it is if they did cafeteria work or janitorial work or something like that, that the cost benefit wasn't there. Like, it cost more than they got out of that person. And I wonder, how much that applies to society in general. Do we end up paying more for those people than we get out of them as a society?
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are more of a drain on society than they are helpful.
Right. 185 legislators.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. If you cost benefit analysis, everyone, I mean, it depends on if you just look from a government standpoint, I guess, when you're talking about the military or something, but if they're not working for the military, then they're probably on benefits. So what's the difference?
Right.
If you're saying that they're not qualified to work anywhere or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of a deep question.
It is. I don't know. That homeless thing, for whatever reason, made me think about... Oh, I know. It's because we have all the homeless people around my office, and that was what he referenced. He was like, that 10% lives right out there under that bridge. But,
right.
So...
Homelessness is we kind of touched on it, I think, with that one, making it illegal. I think we talked about that.
Right.
But it's kind of like something that we could do an entire show on.
Yeah, it's such a multifaceted thing. Like, you think about the series of events that it would take for you or me or Dave to become homeless, right? Like, it would take... There's a lot of things that would have to happen for me to live under a bridge.
Right. But it happens all the time.
Yep, every day.
That's a cheerful way to end holiday leftovers.
Right.
On that note, we will close out episode 45, our holiday leftovers edition. On behalf of Matt Lowe and Jessica Salaji, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you again on episode 46.